Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Go With Your Gut podcast. I am your host, Lauren Dreyer, and today we are talking about conflict, conflict resolution, and a little bit about confrontation because I think they all kind of have to do with each other. I bring this up because this has been kind of a recurring thing um, in my life and the people around me lately. And I wanted to talk about this because I feel like it's something not talked about very much and therefore not dealt with very much. Why? Because confrontation and conflict are uncomfortable. They're uncomfortable, and very few people like to do either confrontation, but nobody wants to be uncomfortable. Why? Well, obviously, it's uncomfortable. And this leads most people, I think, to avoid this situation and maybe try to let it fizzle out or do what it needs to do. But they would rather sit down and go about their business and not deal with it, which is that is what it is. Everybody can deal with it how they want to deal with it. I am somebody who I don't obviously like conflict because anybody I don't think anybody likes conflict. Some people might start it. I don't know. Anyway, I don't like conflict, but I am all about confrontation, not physical confrontation, but confrontation to get things resolved and out on the table so that everybody can move on. Get that tension out of the room and get resolution because nobody wants to feel like that. But very few people like it. I am not one of those people when it comes to having some short term comfort for long term success. And I say that because I think that's a different perspective that a lot of people might not necessarily put with confrontation. And because I know a lot of people who let things go too long. They let things blow up or become a bigger deal than they need to be. And then there are grudges, there are relationships ruined, there are um, careers ruined, lots of different things. Heck, some companies might get ruined. But when you can be okay with having that short term discomfort so that you can have everything after that be resolved and go about your business, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And when I say short term, maybe that means a couple minutes, maybe that means a couple of days, maybe that means a couple weeks to resolve something. And sometimes does that mean a little bit longer, depending on what's going on? Yes. But the key there is you're suffering short term discomfort so that when you come to that finish line, hopefully, whatever you're resolving can work itself out, get fixed, and you all can move on. People tend to, like I said, avoid all of that situation. And like I said, I'm not one of them. I am direct and I would rather go up to somebody and talk to them and say, "Hey, is there something going on? Here's what's going on with me that I need you to know." Whichever way it goes. But a lot of people aren't like that. And the problem with confrontation and conflict resolution, I think, is it's not done correctly a lot of times. And I have partaken in that my fair share because um, I tend to go on a little bit more fight mode when somebody comes at me with something they're not happy with. That's what I used to do. And I've gotten a lot better about it lately. But what happens when somebody comes at us and says, "Hey, I don't like this. I don't like that you do this. Here's what I have a problem with." Immediately, a wall goes up, and we start thinking, "Here's why you're not right. Here's why I'm right. Here's why what you're saying is not true." And we don't hear anything that the other person is saying. All we hear is, um, "I'm mad at you, maybe you suck," or, something along those lines. When in all reality, they may not mean that. It's just they're saying, you say it wrong, they say it wrong, anything like that. I used to go at somebody when I was irritated, upset, and go at it saying, "Here's why I didn't like what you did. You did this that I didn't like." Instead, I have learned to use I statements instead of you statements. You statements being, "I don't like that you did this." I statements being, "Here's how I feel. Here's how it affected me." And that way, you don't play that blame and shame game. You play the, "I need you to know where I'm coming from, how this affected me, and that I didn't like it." And a lot of times that's what it takes. And if somebody can hear you say, "This is how I feel," or "This is how it affected me," it can be much different wording. And all of a sudden, that person heard what you have to say instead of them not hearing anything. And it comes across as this person sitting here telling me that I suck. Because most of the time, I don't think that's the case, even if they use the wrong wording. Because a lot of people, I think, use that wrong wording. I used to, and I have learned to quit doing that. Now, on the flip side of that, when you go up to somebody and start telling them however you're going to tell them, whether you use those I statements or you statements, is you don't have any control how they take what you say. And that's something that you kind of have to go in ready to accept. If you go in to confrontation and all of a sudden you expect it to be rainbows and sunshine, that's not always how it's going to be. That person may get mad at you for saying whatever you want to say, even if it really wasn't that bad. They may be angry, they may be hurt, they may react in a way that you did not expect. And we all kind of have to be okay with however they act because we don't have control over that. And that's really hard, especially if you're like me and I call myself a recovering people pleaser. Maybe you are still a people pleaser, whether you know it or not. But we always go in wanting somebody to be like, "Oh, it's okay. No problem. I totally forgive you. All good." And sometimes that doesn't happen. And we have to be prepared for that. We have to be prepared for them to walk away and maybe they don't talk to us for a while. Maybe they have to figure out um, how they want to deal with it. And we kind of have to be okay with that. And sometimes that means not going into that, "Hey, let's talk about it. Hey, let's resolve this, or let's work on some solutions." Sometimes it's, "I let you know where I was coming from and I told you how I feel. That's yours to do whatever you need to do with it." And we have to sit back and say, "You know, I told you what I needed you to hear. Let me know when you're ready to talk about it," because some people also go into, "I'm so sorry I said this. I shouldn't have done this," when in all reality, if you're telling this person how you feel, how it affected you, you have every right to feel how you feel, whether they think so or not. Don't apologize for that. But they also, you don't have any control over how they come back at you. So when they're sitting there taking in all these things you're saying, we have to let them react how they need to react. And we're going to have to let them have that time to say, okay, you let me know when you're ready to talk about this. And I'm more than happy to talk about that. And yeah, it's probably going to be uncomfortable for a little while because, well, you probably just told somebody that some things that they may not want to hear. But you also have to think about what would happen if somebody comes at you and says, here are the things that you did that I may not necessarily like. And hopefully everybody goes into it calm, not emotionally charged, and not just come in ready to swing and do whatever. But that means if somebody's telling you that, if you would expect somebody to listen to what they need to say to you, you have to think about that on the other side too. And say, if somebody needs to get something out and tell me that they had an issue or I may have done something that upset them, we have to be ready to say, okay, let me hear what you have to say, and I'll take it into account. And it may hurt to hear. It very well may hurt to hear. And do your best to sit there and actually listen to what they're saying and then evaluate if what they're saying has any truth to it, any validity. And depending on who this person is, you may be able to take it with a grain of salt, or it may be something that you need to work on. But try your best to go into something like that, or keep yourself from just getting worked up and overly emotional, because when that happens, we say things that we don't mean. And once you say it, you can't take it back, whether you meant it or not. But if you have something that needs to get put on the table, think about going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, you know, I need to talk to you," or "There's some things that I need you to know." And set up a meeting to talk, or set up some time to be in private and talk, so that it's not just going up to somebody and just dropping a bomb on them all at once, or send it to them in a place, send somebody something in a place where they're maybe not going to be embarrassed. Or think about the presentation and how you're going to do it, and think about how it's going to make them feel. If you know well how they react, or if you don't, depends on the person. It's all very different. But go into it as calmly as possible. Know that they get to react however they're going to react. And make sure that as soon as you say whatever you need to say, that you're not going to regret it. Go through it first and say, okay, once they hear this, coming out of my mouth, or however you're telling them, am I going to feel bad if they react in a different way than I would want? Am I going to feel bad? Or is this something that needs to happen? Because conflict and confrontation is already uncomfortable. So make sure that it is worth it. Make sure that you have put a little bit of thought into this. But think about the fact that you might be able to have a 10-20 minute conversation and get something resolved that otherwise might drag out for days, weeks, months, however long it's going to drag out, maybe longer. And it's going to cause long-term anger, resentment, all of that kind of stuff. Whether it's at work and it's going to burn bridges, or it's going to ruin work relationships, or there's lots of other options. But think about what you're doing. Think about what you're saying before you just go unload everything onto somebody because it's been boiling up for so long. And okay, now it's time to get this on the table. So hopefully that has given some of you some new perspective or helped you think out how you may want to change how you confront people, or maybe it didn't, maybe it made you not hate confrontation so much. But hopefully this has helped some of you, and until next time, go with that gut, do what you need to do, and then keep going.